Welcome to the Infinite Podcast. I'm Melissa Ruiz Vasquez, and I'm here with my husband, Carlos Andres Ruiz. How are you today?
I am so sore today.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes, you are.
uh, I think my body is wondering why am I doing this to it. I haven't even done that much, but it was just like pickup with some friends, like street pickup, like cage, concrete, fences, and like when you're on the fence, like everybody just goes in. And so I have
Got a nice
there might
bruise.
maybe you can see some I have bruise here, like my entire right. um, so I went to that, but then we had already planned pickup with the kids that we train before training session, and then the training sessions, and then we had already planned pickup for back-to-back days this week. Um, and so the kids that we serve and work with are on vacation, and anytime that we get to do some pickup, um, I love pickup when I was young, and I long to recreate these spaces, but I have not felt this sore in a very long time. Like it's tough to sit.
Don't want to move too much.
So that's how I am today.
Yeah,
How are you?
I'm good. I'm not as sore as you are.
No?
I completely forgot that you had Saturday morning pickup, which
Yep.
that was crazy of you, truly. But
Yeah.
hey,
And that was like a last minute. That was a morning like, when I woke up and I saw that like there was one more spot to make it 5v5v5, which at the end it didn't matter because mad people showed up.
hmm
Um, I was like, I just wanna. It's almost like going into a different universe. Like it's a bunch of like Colombian people, and like it's so different from what my regular life deals with, and I feel like I'm connected again to my to my roots for a
hmm
moment. But yeah, so you're not a sore?
no, I'm not as sore. I'm feeling pretty good,
Yeah.
and like I feel good just because it was a workout.
Hmm.
So like, and it just baffles me that we played soccer every
We used to
day.
play like at a higher level and tempo every single day. There's people that like are older than us going significantly harder.
It must be that like if you just keep a consistent rhythm, it doesn't hit you as hard when
Yeah,
you get back into it.
and they like professional players.
hmm
They are well taken care of financially, so they don't have to work and then ever miss moments of staying fit or going to the gym or making sure the recovery. Like we have not done any recovery.
No,
um,
that's bad.
but uh, but anyways, so we've been talking about these 6 words that invade my soul and that I feel that they're so special to me because I think when I walk into any space, whether it's work, family, or any type of relationship, I think that when I have these words present, the experience itself just elevates, and even outside of the outcome, whether it's like a good business deal or a good relationship or a good training session, honoring these 6 words make it so that the moment itself becomes so life-giving. And the 6 words are help humans walk life, hiding less. And we already talked about 3 of them.
Yeah.
Is
Hope humans walk.
Yeah, we talked about help, we talked about humans, and we talked about walk. Um, Quick recap so that we catch people up. But if you haven't watched the first 2, actually the first 3, go back and watch because these 6 words are they can unlock something unique in your everyday. But help. So when we talked about help, I can recap help. We talked about the power of being able to ask for help. That help actually reveals your potential. Your ability to ask for help reveals how successful you will be, and we underestimate the power of that. And sometimes we don't do it because uh, we don't want to look stupid, you know. But uh, I think there's nothing more useful that when we talked about in that conversation, that we could show our kids that if you are okay with asking for help, you can conquer the world.
Mm.
And then the other part of asking for help is that there's something so beautiful when we get to help somebody, and it's just so stimulating when you get to provide. Um, be a resource to someone, and when we don't ask for help, we're keeping people from the opportunity of feeling that way. Um, And so that was help. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about what do you remember about our conversation about humans?
I guess the biggest part I remember about humans is what makes us human. We talked a lot about animals in that one, I think.
Uh-huh.
But what makes us human, and is that making mistakes, or is it that we're created to be perfect? And what is the definition of perfection? That's mostly what I remember from the humans episode.
Yeah. And for some reason we have a saying of like when we come short, we say like, oh, it's just I'm so human and it's okay. And we've lowered the standards of being human. And what does it look like to walk into the room and no, not that that's a lie, that we are not perfect, but that we are also the closest reflection of God here on earth. And those two narratives are so pivotal to the way that you walk into a room. And so we should be so proud to be humans. And then we talked about walk. And that's one of my favorite ones because it's one of the ones that I always have to check myself in. And walk has to do with pace. And the phrase that came to me when I was journaling about this word was that your pace reveals your self-worth. Anything that you remember about our conversation regarding walk?
Lately, ever since that episode, when we're out and about, like when we're driving and someone crosses the street real slow, we're like, man, that person has a lot of self-confidence, they believe in themselves.
There's nothing outside of them that's rushing them. And so I think that your pace really reveals your authority. Your pace reveals how much you feel your worth. Even if you are late somewhere, but you've created a reputation of the person on the other side knows that this is not normal, that I'm always on time. You don't necessarily run. You just shoot a text and say like, hey, my fault, I'm running late. But there's something about when you're in a rush, it actually reflects that maybe you don't value yourself in a proper manner, or you haven't created a reputation that people assume the best of you. So that was pace, and I think that's a really good one that you can see in your everyday. And so which one are we going to talk about today before we go into our warm-up?
We're going to talk about life today, which is probably the biggest, broadest.
That's like the most meta.
Yeah.
For me is you're going to have to do a lot of the talking because in my mind I'm going to go so mystical that we might lose everybody listening. But yeah, so help humans walk life. Today we're going to talk about life and the different textures or the different points of view of life. But before we do that, we got to start with our warm-up. Am I reading this today?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, I got the warm-up today. All right. Did you ever collect anything? What and why? What do you mean collect?
Like people have like collections of things.
Oh,
you did.
Okay, I thought like for some reason I was like collect money from like the government. I don't know why that's the first thing that came to me. I was like, I don't remember. Okay, collect like cars or okay. Well, I'm asking the question, so you got to go first, even if you have my answer.
So I was thinking, yeah, I've collected plenty of things. Like not done it in such a like good like professional way. When I was younger, Pokemon cards were a big thing, so my brother and I would collect those. I don't really remember how we got them. I honestly think my brother would just give me whatever he didn't want, so then I ended up collecting those. Sometimes, like, you know, when you're at like the beach and stuff, like I'll collect like shells that I really like.
That when we went.
Yeah, or like rocks that are really pretty. And then also World Cup, like you would get the book, you would buy the little packets, and then you would get the stickers of each player and fill up that book. So in my head, that's like a kind of collection. So those are the three I can remember right now.
Is there one that you like loved the process of collection?
The World Cup one.
The World Cup one?
Yeah,
yes,
that was
that's so much
fun.
We still do it, no? Like we did last World Cup, no?
Did we?
I feel like we did. I think we started, but I don't think we finished it. But my dad is so good at finishing them.
For the 2014 one, I went in.
Yeah. You went in.
I mean, my dad would go buy them, but like
it hits different. It hits different when Colombia's in it.
Yeah. I think that's why
Yeah.
you want to get the whole squad.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so you felt that I immediately you had an answer for me. What is that?
The World Cup one.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
okay. What else do I collect? Um, I don't like collect jerseys, but I do have a lot of jerseys.
Oh yeah, that too.
I guess my favorite wherever my favorite coach has been in, I decided to root for that team, and so I guess I've collected all the jerseys from where he has coached. Um, what else do I collect? Um, I think the older I get, the less I collect.
I guess are books collections?
Oh, okay. I do collect a lot of books.
I
Yeah.
like that was a genuine question. I have no idea if that's.
Yeah, it could be. It could
But I
be.
guess yeah.
It could be. I collect a lot of books from a specific author or specific topics, and so I think that's where I collect now. I for some reason the idea of collection makes me feel like I'm attached to something,
Yeah.
and I
You-
don't like to be attached to to things, but yeah, I think that's and why
And why?
it says why.
I forgot about the why.
Yeah.
I mean, I really like the beach. So,
Okay.
and like sometimes it's not enough for me to, maybe I just have an attention thing, but like I can't just like lay there for a long time. Like as much as I like to go to the beach to get tan, like I need to be like doing something. And I remember I think that was in Hollywood when we went to
It was in
Florida.
Hollywood. Yeah, I remember.
And I was sitting there, and then a random little girl comes up to me, and she just starts collecting them with me. And so, like, that was like a fun process too, because she was just like, "Look at this one," and I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah, that one's so pretty." I guess like for decoration, because we had it on like a shelf for a little bit, but other than that,
It's not
it's
there
just like
anymore?
a fun process. I think it turned into a mess because I'll explain later. But for that one, Pokemon was just fun because you would actually use the cards and
Oh,
like
you could play. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was just fun. They were pretty. Some of them were like shiny because they were like special. And it's just like the fun process of opening a bag and like, ooh,
That
this
is
one's
so much
new.
fun.
This one I already
That is so much
had. Like,
Yeah.
so on. And then for the same reason, the World Cup one. But that one's a little different because that's like, this is the one World Cup. Like, this one's never going to happen again, and we got to wait another 4 years for it. And if you're a soccer fan, it's a big deal. And then opening the bag, seeing which new ones you get, especially when they're like more rare. Like, I feel like Messi's was a little rare because like everyone wants that one.
Yeah. I'm sure that they put less of Messi or whoever's doing well.
It's like an Easter egg
Yeah.
type of thing. So the
And then
process is
then
enjoyable.
you're like, I'll trade you 5 of nobodies for Messi. Like 4
Exactly.
nobodies.
Nobody's.
Yeah.
They're
yeah.
yeah. So I guess the process and then getting the final product, you get all the rosters for every team, and it just looks good, and it feels good. But
Yeah.
and then like I remember in 2014, I think I would do it with my dad. Like he had his own, so like that's also a fun process, and you can do it with someone you love.
Yeah, I agree. I think the idea of collection is actually so interconnected with our topic today of life. We actually don't know what the questions are going to have, but normally the questions are really good bridges to our conversation. But I do feel that when I think of life, it's like, what is life if not a collection of memories?
Yeah.
You know, and I think we try to collect the fullest of every single moment. I remember there was a time when I went to San Francisco. I just wanted to take a week off, and I biked from one side of the bridge to the other, and then in the other side of the bridge, they it's like this corner where people take pictures.
I want it to be like what bridge?
What bridge? Golden Gate. And so I was just sitting there journaling, and I was just paying attention to the people that were there, and the parents were so adamant about getting a picture, and it was a father, a mother, and a baby,
No.
and not a baby, it was like a toddler, and they kept trying to like get the toddler to get ready to take pictures, and the toddler's like like just walking away, and they're like, no, but we need the picture, we need the picture, and and it made me wonder, like, it's so fascinating that the toddler has no sense of I need to hold on to this moment, and the parents is like, let's put this inside of the camera so that we can forever remember this moment, as if like somebody can take this moment away, but there is this intrinsic desire to collect, and I wonder if like when you connect it to life, or our topic of life today, if we're collecting maybe to hold on to something that we feel is finite, and I wonder if there's a difference, like the kid could care less, because I think kids are desensitized from time, like the 3-year-old or the 2-year-old has no clue of what life will be like, or when the idea of like you will die one day, like kids are not thinking about that, right?
Yeah.
And then on the other spectrum, I also wonder if the older you get, also the more desensitized you get from this material stuff, and you just want to experience life, or you just want to hang out with family rather than actually maybe collect cards or collect pictures or collect videos. But you were telling me a story last week about so Melissa does the arduous work of going grocery shopping.
The what work?
Arduous. Do you know what the word
What?
arduous means?
Oh my gosh, profe. No, I've never heard that word in my life.
Emily, am I saying the word right? Is arduous a word? Arduous?
How do you spell it?
We can look it up.
No, I believe that it's a
No,
word,
I just want to
but
make
like
sure I'm saying
I'm like,
it right.
damn vocab, like I don't know that word.
Let's see. Let's test.
Surprise me.
Arduous. Arduous, involving or requiring strenuous effort, difficult and tiring.
Oh my god. Give me a high five. That's good.
That's a good word. Oh,
Yeah.
give me a good high five. That's the word that comes to mind when I think of things like grocery shopping and the deli line.
Wow.
So you do that for us, and you're telling me about a story. You were telling me a story about your experience. Can you tell us?
So last week when I went, I was in a pretty good mood, but I like to listen to music while I'm grocery shopping, but that's not important to this. I had like two people, no, I had one person, I was going down the aisle and he stopped me and he's like, can you read this for me? And he's holding like a bag of bread or something. And he's like, does that say May 2nd? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, okay. And he just kept moving. He kept it pushing. I was like, happy I could help. And I was just like interested because I'm like, it might have just been passing right time. And like he wanted to ask me or he felt like he could ask me. But it was an older man who was by himself. So I feel most of the time that when I see people, they're in, like with their families or something when they're in grocery stores. But anyways, and then when I was in the deli line, there was a group of, because I think I normally go early. So it was around 11 o'clock, noontime. And there was about like 3 older women, like next to where you take the numbers. But they were hanging out, they were chatting, like, but they were like taking the whole like lane. So like you had to like go around them if you wanted to, like go to the other side.
Do you think they knew, or they were just?
I think they were just like, where else am I gonna go? Yeah. Like, why am I gonna move? Like, there's so much other space, or like, it's already like kind of like a tight space. The only reason it was like kind of tight was because there was this like stand in the middle between the counter. So like they were in that space between the stand and the counter. So they're like, where else am I gonna go? I'm not like either block up the middle or block up right here. So I'm gonna just stand here. So they were just chatting and they weren't paying attention to what was going on at the counter. But it just made me think like, wow, they really do not care. Like in not like a judgment way, like
Yeah.
oh they need to move,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but like in like wow I wish I was that
Is
like
that free?
that free, yes, that like I don't really, it's not gonna bother me like, and if you need me to move, I'm sure you'll ask me to move.
Yeah.
But
I feel like the word free is a word that we want to try to associate with life, or that we want to attain. And like if I feel free, then I feel that I've achieved the the correct lifestyle. And there is something about the older you get, the less you care. So you are more free. But for some reason, it takes to get to a certain age to care less. And I think that a big ingredient of life is time. And we've decided to agree on time, at least on specific parts of the world, because there's other parts based on the sun that it's 6 hours later or 6 hours earlier. But the idea of time is so interconnected to the idea of life. And I think our relationship with time can reveal our relationship with life. And I wonder what it looks like to, when we talk about help humans walk life, hiding less, when you get to a certain age that you actually don't care about what other people think, you start to hide less. But it's the same ingredient at the beginning. When the kid, like if you have a kid that's just maybe 1 year old and you just put him and he's just running around naked. So he's not embarrassed. He doesn't care what anybody thinks. He's just living life. And I want to maybe figure out some principles as to how we can achieve the fullness of our everyday when we think about life. And so there's this line from one of my favorite leaders that he says, we don't choose to exist, but we do choose whether we want to live or not. And so it's almost like it's an everyday choice to want to be alive and to want to walk into life. When do you feel are moments in which you are most alive?
I think we've talked about this casually before, but when you lose track of time, funny enough, is when you probably feel most alive, because you're like, oh my gosh, it's already that time, like, and you're probably more bummed out that that time is coming to an end with whoever. But I find that it's mostly with my loved ones. So like with family or with you or with my friends. I think that's probably when I feel most alive, or when I'm doing something I really enjoy. Like when I play soccer and I'm like having fun, I'm like, oof, it's already been 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe that. But yeah.
And so losing track of time is probably, if we're trying to figure out how to be most alive, maybe instead of being cautious about, I can't waste time, which is something that I struggle with. But ironically, it's the moments in which you lose. It's the moments in which you lose track of time, and in which you are actually the most productive. And in the moments that you lose track of time, you actually almost lock into this greater level of productivity. And I know that when I lose track of time, I get tired less. And this is one of the reasons why I love doing pickup with the kids that we work with, because they are in these structured spaces like school, like their club teams, or like their town teams, or all these places where they're under pressure as to, like, there's a season and you have to win this amount of games, and there's a time boundary around how you can make it the best season yet. And you forget that in a pickup game, there's not really 90 minutes. There's not this is the final game, or this is the title, or whatever it may be. It's in these pickup moments that you just completely lose yourself. And that's how I grew up. And it was because of a pickup game that I was able to end up going to college. And I think that we've created so many structures about, okay, I have limited time to get to college. I have limited time to get to a career. And so we format our everydays in, what can I do to not waste time that's going to get me to this place? And ironically, it's probably easier articulated than lived, but trying to create a reality in which you put yourself in spaces in which you lose track of time, and that's when you are your most authentic version of yourself, and when you are your most creative and your most charismatic. And I think when we talk about those three pillars of our podcast, relational intelligence, emotional intelligence, and character development, when we lose track of time, it's almost as if these just organically come out of us. And when those organically come out of us, I think the people in that space start to receive it, and there's this unique dynamic and interconnection of life that almost awakens in that moment. But we choose to not create reality like that. We choose to go to meetings, to go to work. Not that you shouldn't go to work or meetings, but we choose to prioritize that over moments in which we lose track of time. So I do think that it has to do with time and the ingredient of time, and maybe if we reimagine what time is or is not. Because I remember when I was in school, I could look at the clock and it was like, it felt like 2 hours went by, but it was only 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm having fun, 2 hours actually go by in 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so why is that? Or why do we choose to agree on time if actually, for me, it feels like time actually disrupts my ability to be alive?
Sometimes when I'm looking forward to something, like say I'm looking forward to like pick up and I know it's like a limited amount of time. I know it's 2 hours, 1.5 hours, whatever. As soon as it starts, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is gonna end so soon. Like I'm looking at the time, I'm like, oh, how's it already like whatever, like now I'm down to 1 hour. And so like it does feel like, I guess when you're thinking about pace, you're like, I want this to slow down. Like I don't want this to end, but your brain thinks that it's just gonna go really fast.
So how would you describe that feeling? Like anxious that it's gonna end, or?
Yeah, I guess like you're like trying to soak everything in because you know it's gonna end. And I guess that's one sentence for life. That's it. Like you know it's gonna end, so you gotta soak in every part of it.
But it's such a paradox that it can do both things. Like the closer you get to the end, the more anxious, like what could I do? What could I do to make the most of it? But also, the closer you get to the end, the more careless you are. And so there's almost like both a jump in how much you care about every single second that you have left, and also how much you don't care about anything because you don't have too much time left. I think for me, life, it's a tough topic to talk about because I end up going into more like of a mystical point of view, and I choose to believe that we are eternal beings, and that desensitizes me from this anxiety or fear of getting things done by a certain time or before I leave Earth. And I think being part of spiritual communities, sometimes I get overwhelmed, or sometimes I get annoyed with the fact that heaven becomes the desired outcome, or that the afterlife, and it's for me, it doesn't make sense that if there's eternal life, it starts after death. If it's eternal, it doesn't have a start or it doesn't have an end. And finding a way to reimagine our reality from a point of view of eternity has already started. Like this is an eternal moment that we are experiencing, and you can hear me and you can feel what my words may make you feel, then I can do the same with you. But this moment, it's eternal. We don't have to die to achieve eternity, if it's true that eternity is a thing. And I choose to believe that it is. And I think there's like a lighter perspective or a lighter approach to life since I've decided to believe that death is just almost a change in residency, and that I don't know what is on the other side of that. But I choose to believe that death doesn't have the capacity to end life. And and that really brings me peace. And I think when I think of death, it hurts me more to think of what people around me will feel. But I feel very comfortable with the idea that I am an eternal creation, and that life itself actually doesn't have an end. And I think of, what are the chances that you were born in Rhode Island
Yes.
and I was born in Cali, Colombia, and for our stories to come across. And I have so many friends that were born in Croatia, and and I was born in Cali, and then we met in the United States. And I choose to believe that everybody that you meet like this is just, it's just people that when we get to the next location, like there's no way we're not gonna also spend time with them, because the chances of that interaction happening. So it's almost like whatever relationship started here, it's only gonna continue on the other side of whatever it is, and that brings me so much lightness when I don't hear from someone for a long time, or which the opposite part is that sometimes I won't get back to people because I am in more of an eternal point of view that no, like life doesn't end, and if I love you and you love me, this love will always be able to be exchanged. But yeah, I choose to believe that if we find a way to look at life as an eternal experience, it's almost like we dismantle some of the anxiety and fear and things that make us almost like lose our breath a little bit. Yeah, I don't know that I have a question, but that's just where my brain goes when I think of life.
To summarize what you said is that death doesn't have the capacity to end life.
Mm.
Is your perspective on that?
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, like,
We can't really prove either way on the other side.
yeah, no, we
So
can't.
why choose the?
Yeah, I choose the worst option when you can have a more comforting idea. But I guess like what's important is that if you like truly believe in that, not just like believe in it so that I feel better in the moment. But I guess for me, when I think about life, is that what gives it purpose is the idea that we die. Like, but I think it's because we've talked about this like philosophically, I guess, and like I love The Good Place, the show The Good Place. I'm always gonna put people on the shows, but The Good Place is such a good show, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but the idea of the afterlife, like the only difference between now and the afterlife is that now this reality for us like eventually ends. Because if we either didn't have the capacity to die, like if we're immortal, like who gives like what you do while you're here? And like there isn't, and like say we just go on living forever like vampires, like if we already struggle with purpose, imagine if we didn't die.
Yeah.
Life would be so pointless or feel pretty meaningless, and like it would just feel like you were talking about earlier is like existence. Like I think what is new to me in my journey is the idea of there's such a huge difference between living and being alive, because I think we confuse existence with living. Like we're watching one of your favorite speakers this weekend, and he went in on like what's the difference between being alive and just living. And I think that is such a big part of life. Like we get caught in these cycles of, especially, I guess it ties into as you get older, you don't care as much about what other people think. When we're younger, we care a lot about what other people think. I started thinking interesting that right now, as a 26-year-old, like I already care less about what other people. Well, I care about what people think about me, but I don't let it impact the way I behave. If I don't think it's a accurate judgment of who I am.
Yeah.
But when you're even younger, when you're like 14, I see the high schoolers are like, oh, but this person might think this or this person. And I find myself like, who cares? But it's easy for me to say that now when I'm this age. But I think back to way when I cared, I would have cared too. So I can empathize with them in the sense that I remember what it's like to care so much about what other people think, and to feel like even though you are just one person, you constantly feel like you're being perceived, or you constantly feel like if I mess up, someone's going to see that, or if I make a mistake, or if I say something wrong, or if I look ugly, or if I do this, someone's going to notice. And half the time, the reality is that no one noticed.
Yeah.
But all that to say, like, I think a big part of
So you say death adds meaning to
yes.
to the time here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it helps. It helps to make the most out of relationships that you have here. I have a hard time allowing that help me, but I do know that there's a greater number of people that really moves you to a more meaningful or purpose-driven life, because if I have a time frame, then I better make the most out of it. And you do come closer to like, I don't care what people think, and I don't care what people think, but I do care about how I impact them. And so, although I don't care that maybe something that I say you may interpret in a certain way, I do care if it impacted you in a good way or in a bad way. So I think there's a little bit of a difference between not caring, but how it impacts does matter to me. And I think it goes back to having a pure motive and a pure intention. And if you can walk every day with pure motive and pure intention, whether you die that day or you die in 20 years, I think you've tapped into purpose and meaning. But yeah, I think I do feel it's an interesting point of view that if we didn't die, would we be in more of a meaningless? I think if we didn't die on Earth, yes, because it's so. I think we've turned purpose into such a, which I don't know that we know, but purpose becomes so transactional. Like I need to be doing something for something or someone to feel alive, but to have meaning, you don't necessarily need to have an exchange of anything to have meaning. Like some of the most meaningful times is when we go and do nothing, you know, or when we just playing cards, you and I, or when we just go have a meal. And so I don't know that doing nothing removes meaning, but I think it does in this realm or this reality, because we have created of like we have to do something. And I do feel that one of the reasons why we long to live a life of purpose is because we have a deficit in self-worth. And so if you live a purposeful life, then you feel like you're worth more. But if you always feel like you're worth a lot, then maybe you overlook purpose. But if you feel worth, I think you're walking in purpose, because I think that I wonder if God's purpose for us here on earth is to walk every day full of worth, and how can I add worth and to the people around me, and how can I convince myself of being worthy of all the things that I do. But it's a topic that I do feel that it has so many different points of views, and I think what I would love people to leave with, removing the pressure of life and knowing that life is actually something lighter and something more organic and something more natural, that um, we were created for life to just come out of us. And and I've told this story maybe to you and one more other person. When my uncle passed away, I had to talk about him in his funeral. And I didn't say this, but it was something that I had prepped. And what came to mind was that there's so many times when I dream about when I dream with people that are no longer here. And and it's just a curiosity of mine, and it's like I wonder if my soul, because I choose to believe that my soul is eternal, I wonder if my soul doesn't understand this finite reality. And and some of these dreams are like I'll dream with my grandma, and it's such a real experience. And I wake up and it's like I just spent time with grandma or with my uncle or with anybody that maybe is no longer here. And I think and I choose to believe, again, this is just my thoughts, that our soul doesn't distinct life and death, that our soul only understands life, that our soul actually has never been able to formulate or download or experience this word of death. And and that for me is a little bit more of how I live every day, that there's my soul that is constantly in this eternal livelihood state, and then there's this my physical body that will come to an end, but my soul knows that life doesn't end, or at least I choose to believe that. My soul believes that. If not, then why does it give my brain permission to dream with my grandma? You know. And for me, I just it just reminds me that even in moments where we lose a significant other, or when we're coming close to our ends physically, there's so much more of the story that we don't know of. And for me, that's exciting. And for me, it's almost just like a season ends, and there's a season, an unknown season. That's the only reason we watch the next season of any episode, because we don't know what's going to happen. But death makes it seem like it's over and it's dark. Soy darks. But anyways, that's a little bit of the conversation about life. And again, the 6 words are help humans walk life, hiding less. And I choose to believe, at least for my reality, that if I believe in this eternal reality, I don't feel like I have anything to hide, or I don't feel like I have to rush. And the purest expression of me is the one that I'm gonna give you. And if you love me enough, then the life I've lived up until today, you'll accept it and embrace it. And if you don't love me enough, then that's okay. I'm sure you will have somebody else that loves you, and you love. But yeah, what are your takeaways with the topic of life?
Oh my goodness, excuse me. I thought it was great, summarized, and life is just a collection of memories. That's it. So I'm gonna just leave it at that.
Life is a collection of memories. Yeah, yeah.
That's what happens in a funeral. You just talk about memories you have with that person.
Yeah. I wonder if we don't if memories are only a thing past tense.
What?
A thing from past. So like so like at least that's the way we've seen it here. But how can we remember what love is if we've never experienced pure love on earth? And so it has to
very mystical.
so it has to be a memory from not the past. Because ever since I was alive, there's been people dying of hunger. And so we've never experienced the fullness of love, the fullness of justice, the fullness of fairness. But we choose to, something is reminding us that that's here. And so for that reason, because regardless of the harm and the nastiness on earth, we still choose and are stimulated by by a memory of love,
Mm-hmm.
or a memory of kindness, or a memory of patience. And it's a memory that we haven't fully seen at its totality here. I choose to believe that we are a collection of memories, past tense and future tense, that we're living right now, and that's life.
Mm-hmm. I mean, if it's eternal, the timeline is just like a circle.
Yeah, yeah,
Or
yeah.
going like this. I don't even know.
Is it this or is it this, or I don't know.
It's,
Maybe it's like
we're
this.
gonna find out one day. Maybe.
All right, so that was life. We're back to the present. Um, drop comments. I would love to hear people's perspective on life. I think I grow so much from everybody's points of views, but I love diving into these future, past, timeless moments, and again, that's why we choose to call our brand Infinite. I think it detaches from one point of view, and it allows us to maximize the perspective of our human mind and our human soul. So that's life. Next, what's the next word?
Hiding.
Hiding. Oh my goodness, that's a tough one. That's a
Is it?
nasty one. We go from
Oh.
life to hiding. Um,
So you're gonna do that one by yourself?
uh,
No, I'm just kidding.
you're gonna go hide?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So thank you for watching, Mel. Thank you for talking about life, and you have to listen to me not just at home but on the podcast and everywhere. Just have conversations that only you have the ears and the heart to to hear. I love you. Thank you for doing this with me, and we'll see you guys next episode.